I have the honor to MC as well. It's my pleasure to introduce as our next speaker Dr. Ernie Murakami. I think many of you know Dr. Murakami because he's played the role of saint and savior in your life. A very important man in British Columbia who has much courage and has suffered a great deal within his own profession for his courage to provide clinical diagnosis of Lyme disease. My pleasure to introduce Dr. Murakami.
Thank you for the introduction. I'd like to thank all of you for being here. It shows you that we have a big problem, and we, in part, the medical profession is divided. We have to become united on the issue of the diagnosis of Lyme disease. We have what's called the IDSA guidelines for the treatment of Lyme disease, and recently on my birthday I found out that the Attorney General from Connecticut has felt the issues of the diagnosis and treatment are unilaterally represented by the group who is not committed to the treatment of Lyme disease, even accepting that it is here. Now it is here, and it's going to be here. Once it's in our animals, it's here forever. And we have to learn to live with the fact that we have to be very careful. It's not a panic situation. It's an awareness situation that a lot of people are suffering, and our diagnostic tests must improve. To give you an example, 2 to 6 states or every province reports 2 to 6 cases per year. Contrast to across the border in the central states and eastern states, they report thousands. To give you an example, I was lecturing in Halifax, 2 cases were reported. Across the border into Maine, 1,000 every year. The same situation in Fort Francis. I lectured there, and they reported double figures. And yet, in Minnesota, which is 1/10 the size of Ontario, they reported 986 cases. Now, there's something seriously wrong. We have dialogued with the federal Minister of Health, directly and indirectly, and for the first time, I had someone in the government system acknowledge that the work that I have done so far has been confirmed with proof of some of you and most of you who have written to me, to the college, to the governments. And we have approached the provincial government as well, and we feel that we are at a turning point in our fight for recognition, fight for the right to educate our medical students and residents, which is a must, because I call it syphilis then, Lyme now. And we have to get really militant about getting our medical students and residents educated about a clinical diagnosis, because a lab test called ELISA is grossly inadequate. Just from what I've told you about the stats, from across the border, 2 to 6 per province and thousands across the border, I don't think you have to be a mathematician to determine the fact that we have a very serious problem. I'm not trying to, as I say, not to cause a panic situation, but an awareness system that we have to work together. We can't remain divided. Doctors are divided about what they firmly believe in. I believe there's a time for short-term treatment, and yet another group for long-term treatment. So in closing, I'd like to say that I will continue my I can't say treatment because I can't treat anymore, because I have to send a lot of my patients across the border, which is ridiculous and expensive. And we have to resolve this problem as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Our next speaker is Jim Wilson from the Canadian Lyme Disease Foundation.
Thank you, everybody. It's nice to see such a good turnout here. I'll get right to it. Protocol for the diagnosis of Lyme disease in BC has been in most part dictated by an organization called the Infectious Disease Society of America. The IDSA, the acronym for the Infectious Disease Society of America, has been investigated by the Attorney General of the state of Connecticut under antitrust laws for the past 1.5 years. As of May 1st, 2008, the IDSA have been forced to assign an independent review team devoid of any of the original players within the IDSA to completely reassess every aspect of the IDSA Lyme disease guidelines that are followed so religiously here in Canada. Research study after research study has shown that testing methods used at our BC Centre for Disease Control, recommended by the IDSA, are less than adequate for diagnosis, yet patients are being turned down for appointments by infectious disease doctors in BC unless they have a positive BC blood test. This is contrary to all recommendations in published research and is therefore unethical. CanLyme is requesting BC immediately set up a safe haven medical clinic where patients can get a clinical diagnosis. That's a diagnosis not reliant on tests or inadequate epidemiological data. This clinic would then allow its doctors to treat the patient as they see fit, using their best medical judgment. And this interference that has been gone on with the infectious disease doctors has to be taken out of the equation. Our BC medical schools produce very capable doctors, capable of exercising their good judgment. A group of self-appointed experts shouldn't be allowed to come in and tell a doctor how to do his job. A model for a clinic such as that is already in place in Europe. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Europe had an estimated 85,000 cases of Lyme disease in 2006 alone. I think they know what they're doing. If we wanted to, and if there was political motivation, we could have such a clinic up and running within 12 months. In fact, within weeks, we could have a completely independent review committee set up with experts from our 3 major universities to review all aspects of Lyme disease protocol in BC. The review committee could model itself after the Attorney General of Connecticut model. Again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Don't accept our opinion on this. An open, independent review of all Lyme disease policy in BC, including the education curriculum at our medical schools, should be commenced immediately. Yes. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Doug Routley from Ladysmith, Duncan, and Cowichan, and he's been working with the Marie McQuaid family to help them get some treatment. And I want to say happy birthday, Marie!